so happy to be back in Des Moines. We do make it back about 2 or 3 times a year, my husband and I, to Iowa. We have not forgotten Iowa, but we do like being where it is not real cold in the winter time. But thank you, Judge Bremer, for the gracious introduction and for nominating me for this distinguished Gertrude Rush Award. And to the Iowa National Bar Association and the Iowa Organization of Women Attorneys, I am honored and humbled by your selection of me. I want to thank my family, friends, and those who gave advice along this journey. You know who you are. And to my husband, Charles, who is here, and my daughter, Cassie, who is here, and also my daughter, Candace, your unwavering support has kept me strong. I am truly also grateful to God for his guidance. Gertrude Rush has been an inspiration to many when it comes to perseverance. I have been asked to discuss my perseverance in getting my name included in the book History of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Iowa, 1882 to 2020. It was published in 2021 by the Northern District of Iowa Historical Society. And hereinafter, I will refer to these as the history book and the Historical Society. My perseverance began when I was hired as the first African American Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Northern District of Iowa. During my 24-year tenure, 1994 to 2018, I dedicated myself to litigating criminal and civil rights cases, primarily Americans with Disabilities Act cases. My commitment to social justice extends beyond the courtroom now as a volunteer with the Disabled American Veterans Organization. I am also committed to helping those who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Along with my husband, I support a U.S. and foreign missions organization, Charles George Missions, established in 2004 by my husband. On February 2nd, 2022, I was shocked and disappointed to learn that my name was the only one excluded from the history book's list of AUSAs who served between 1891 and 2020. Today, I will address why my name was left out, who left my name out, and how I got my name back into the history book. Let's discuss why my name was left out of the book, because my perseverance and name exclusion are intertwined. You have a copy of the New York Times article that was published on March 18, 2023. At the end of that article, a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office stated my name was not left out of the history book because of any ethnic or retaliatory reasons. However, my 24-year tenure with the U.S. Attorney's Office proves otherwise. Throughout that time, I filed at least 15 complaints of discrimination with the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys, the Office of Inspector General, and within the U.S. Attorney's Office in Cedar Rapids. They were not formal EEO complaints. When my supervisor attempted to fire me in 1997, I hired an employment law attorney, and he informed me that I would be terminated if I filed a formal EEO complaint. However, in 2013, I did the unthinkable. I filed an affidavit refuting the deposition testimony of 2 managers in our office in a discrimination case brought by an AUSA they had terminated. The case was Fag v. Holder. Those 2 management attorneys alleged in their depositions that I and 2 other lawyers in the U.S. Attorney's Office were not doing our job. Now, to cut through the legalese, eventually those statements, along with my name and my 2 colleagues' names, made it into newspapers throughout the United States. The government failed to redact our names when it filed a motion to dismiss the case. One of those newspapers contacted me for a comment. I had already endured quite enough from 1994 to 2013. I told the then acting U.S. Attorney I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I had had enough. So I filed the affidavit negating what was stated in the depositions. It became one of the trial exhibits used against my office. The United States Attorney's Office was angry with me. I will not tell you how I knew. They couldn't fire me because I had filed this affidavit in a court proceeding. But they denied me the title of Civil Rights Attorney, a new position designated by the Department of Justice. I had been doing the work for more than 13 years, but never held the official title. And management wasn't going to give it to me. In fact, they went outside of the office to hire somebody else. Now, mind you, I had already received 2 commendations from the Department of Justice for my civil rights work. But the United States Attorney's Office was determined not to give me that title. It was retaliation. The person they hired had less experience than I did, so I trained her. And as an aside, she and I are the best friends today, and she was excited to learn that I'm receiving this award. I have presented a few of the reasons why my name was excluded from the history book. Now, let's talk about who excluded it from the history book. When I retired in 2018, I thought everything was okay between the U.S. Attorney's Office and me. But when I saw my name was not in the history book, I knew somebody was still not happy. They tried to erase my name out of history, but I fought to put it back. From February to October of 2022, I marshaled evidence, wrote letters, and conferred with friends and advisors. One invaluable source of information was the minutes from the Historical Society meetings. And as another aside, I want to thank a friend named Mo, who said, "Stephanie, look at the minutes of the Historical Society." In the minutes, it was clear that the spokesperson named in the New York Times article used 3 resources for the attorney list that was eventually published in the history book: Westlaw, the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I worked for 24 years, and the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys that paid my salary for 24 years. My name had to have appeared in all 3 of those lists. The spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office implied in that article, quote, "A person who worked in the prosecutor's office," end quote, handled the spreadsheet, which is how my name got deleted from the list. So, now let's talk about how I got my name back into the book. I negotiated with the Northern District of Iowa Clerk's Office, the intermediary between the Historical Society and myself. But the Northern District of Iowa refused to give me 2 hard copies of the book with my name on it because it was cost prohibitive. They put the name in the online version of the history book and told me they would include it in the next publication. However, the next publication would probably be 20 years later. The Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys agreed with the Northern District of Iowa that the omission was, quote, clearly inadvertent. In other words, Washington wasn't going to do anything about it. They just didn't care. Finally, on September 30th, 2022, I sent a letter explaining the omission to the Honorable Judge Jane Kelly, board chair of the Historical Society for the U.S. Court's 8th Circuit. I also agreed to send supporting documents. So you understand that basically the 8th Circuit in St. Louis had jurisdiction over the History Society in Cedar Rapids. On October 7, 2022, Judge Kelly and 8th Circuit librarian Eric Bruce proposed a solution. 3 pages would be revised. The first would include my name, and all 3 pages would be pasted into the history books at federal libraries in the 8th Circuit. So I am grateful to both of them for that. But the best part of the story happened when my husband and I returned to Iowa in December of 2022. While we were having breakfast in Des Moines, a man approached our table and introduced himself. "My name is Trip Gabriel, and I'm with the New York Times." He was interviewing people for a story, and after we answered his questions, I told him, "You think you're here for that story, but you're really here for mine." And right here, I'm going to stop and give God his proper recognition. We never go through Des Moines when we would visit Cedar Falls. Never. But we had a couple of things that we had to do in Des Moines. It was not a coincidence that we stopped at that diner in Des Moines. It was not a coincidence that a New York Times reporter was there at that moment and came to our table. It was divine providence. I told Trip Gabriel about the omission. Sorry, I still get so emotional. I told him about the omission from the history book. I followed up with him in January and February of 2023, and I sent him a picture of the electronic billboard I had on display for Black History Month. Stephanie Wright, first African American Assistant United States Attorney, Northern District of Iowa. In mid-February, while Charles and I were walking in the park, I received an email from Mr. Gabriel. His editors had green-lighted the story and were very enthusiastic about it. The following week, I met him in Cedar Rapids. After he interviewed me, we went to the federal courthouse library to see the history book. Sure enough, the page with my name and the other 2 pages were neatly pasted in. They were slightly worn, proof that the pages had been there for a while. I was pleased, but could not understand why I was not more elated. That changed on March 18th of 2023, when the New York Times published a full-page article entitled "A Retired Prosecutor's Quest for Recognition." I felt vindicated because the country and the world would know my story. Equally important, some of the people responsible for omitting my name from the history book were accountable for their actions, at least to some extent. Whether my name was deleted from the spreadsheet based on ethnicity, retaliation, bias, or none of these, the record needed to be set straight. Whether the exclusion of my name was intentional or clearly inadvertent, the record needed to be set straight. The U.S. Attorney's Office did not step up when it had the opportunity to do so in February of 2022. And I will say that neither did the Department of Justice Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys. I'm grateful to everyone who did step up to do the right thing and help me set the record straight. When it is in your power to do the right thing for the right reason to achieve the right result, do it. Again, thank you, Judge Brimmer, the Iowa Organization of Women Attorneys, and the Iowa National Bar Association for this award and recognition. And one last thing, I think Gertrude Rush would be proud of us today. Thank you, and God bless.